I think running is so mental and it's all like confidence. I feel like I started to have a little bit of a switch once I believed in myself, not just I wanted to. I always wanted to run certain times and all these things, but I never believed I could. And then I think just once you actually fully believe in yourself, a lot will change. And I also think you have to do the work and you have to take sacrifices, and it's hard, but it will work out in the end.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2025. This is my first recorded conversation of the new year, and I appreciate you clicking on this episode. I've got a special one for you today. I have the privilege of speaking with Kimberly May, who's an athlete I've wanted to speak with for a while now. Last year, early in the year, she ran 4:27 in the mile, which at the time of running that was the 8th fastest time ever run in the NCAA and at that distance. And so I've wanted to have a conversation with her since then, and she's gone on to do some amazing things, both the continued rest of that indoor season, outdoor season, and then this past cross-country season where she was a main key component and leader within her cross-country team at Providence, where she helped lead them to a historic 3rd place as a team. This conversation is filled with insights, wisdom. Kimberly is originally from New Zealand, so we also talk a lot about the international recruitment process, what it's like to go back home during the holidays or during the summer, how she gets training in when things are busy or, she doesn't have as many resources. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Kimberly, and it's a perfect one to kick off your year because Kimberly speaks at length about how she's transformed her running in a few-year period and how you too in 2025 can look back at the end of this year and be happy and proud of the progress that you made and how to take those next steps within your running progression and journey. My only note for it before we hop into this one, if you're watching this on YouTube, please consider hitting the subscribe button. If you're listening or watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button so you don't miss a single conversation we release this year. I appreciate your support, and that is one of the easiest things you can do. And then Spotify, give us that 5-star review. Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star review, and also leave a review with a note. Always love hearing your thoughts on the podcasts. And without further ado, I hope you all enjoy my conversation with the one and only Kimberly May. Kimberly May, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. First episode I've recorded this year, and it's a privilege to do it with you. How are you doing this morning in New Zealand? One day ahead of me.
I'm doing really good, thank you. Yeah, it's early. It's 7 a.m. So it's the earliest I've woken up all break, but I'm happy to be here.
Her dedication extends on and off the track, also to podcast recordings. What do you have to tell me about the future and Saturday? What was your Friday like, and how does it feel having lived literally like 16 more hours than me?
No,
it's crazy how that works time-wise. Like you were in a whole nother year while I was in 2024 a few days ago.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird. It's actually kind of annoying because on like Christmas, I was so happy I got to have Christmas, and then I had to wake up and then just relive everyone else's Christmas, and I was like, oh, it's not anymore.
What's it like when you are back home? And also, I'm curious, like during the summer when you're not at Providence, are you home? And if that's the case, what's it like trying to stay in touch with friends back in the States? How is that process like in terms of like setting up calls or just being awake at the same time?
It's actually really weird. Like, it's quite hard. I just will text him whenever, but it's even weirder because a lot of our team is Irish, so a lot of my close friends are from Ireland and England, and they're even worse. Like, I think they're completely, it's 7 a.m. here, so it's 6 p.m. for them. So it's basically like 24 hours. So that's really hard, or 12 hours. But I mean, it's quite easy now with social media to just text them.
Obviously, when you're on campus and you're in the States, you're not just at school, but also training at a super high level, almost always have some sort of championship or a race in mind that you're training hard and intently for. Is it nice when you go back home to, I'm sure you're still running and training, but maybe take a little bit of a reset and take me through that process when you go back home?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is going home is just like a mental break from everything. Like, I love the NCAA in campus, but it gets a lot because we live on campus. Like, our whole team, like, we're not really allowed to live off campus. So it's a lot. You live with your team 24/7 and you run all the time. So it's really nice to come home and just have a break. And it's summer right now, so it's really nice to get a sun.
How about the winters in Rhode Island? I've obviously never been there, so if you told me it was warm, I'd believe you. And if you told me you got 5 inches of snow every day, I would believe you.
It's not like It's bad. It does snow. Like it's gets quite bad, especially in January. But it's not terrible. Like last winter was not bad at all. But it's kind of like Boston, but I don't think as bad as Boston. Like we're only an hour from Boston.
In terms of when you come back home to New Zealand, I'm sure you still have friends back there, friends you grew up with that you stay in touch with. How aware are they of what's going on in the life of Kimberly May in the States? Did you come back and they're like, oh my gosh, you placed third? Or is it like, oh, hey, what have you been up to?
Hi, what have you been up to? I don't think.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, they don't like, and it's I quite like it. It's really refreshing, honestly. Yesterday, actually, I was out for lunch with my friend, and I had to get like I had some photos taken, um, for running and stuff, and I had to tell them because I had to come late or something, and they're just like, "What?" Like they could not understand why I had to get like it was so funny, but I was like, "Yeah, it's fine."
In a sense, is that nice not to have? Because I'm sure in the States or at Providence, like almost all your friends, if they aren't on the team, know you're a runner and are probably heavily invested in that and ask you questions around that pretty consistently. Is it nice having, friends back home who really could care less about Kimberly May the runner and more so about Kimberly May the person? Is that refreshing ever?
Yeah, it's so refreshing. I think that's why I love coming home because it is just a break from everything. So I love it.
We can talk about your cross season at length in a minute here, but obviously the defining moment and cherry on top was you helping your team to place third, which I know everyone was ecstatic about. Everyone kind of had their day on the right day, culminating in that third place finish. What's this in between period been like between cross, which you're excellent on the grass, but I feel like track and indoor track last year is where you kind of had your coming out party. So what's this process been like between that like extreme high of third place and then, you know, this few month kind of down period as you're maybe now starting to come back up and prepare for some indoor races?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was an extreme high, and I think I was really drained from it all. I think like the whole cross country season, and then the day, and then me and Alex were meant to run BU season opener, but we got sick. And I think us getting sick was just such a like we were just so tired, and it was such an overwhelming like week. And then I think it all just came. So we had some downtime after nationals. We missed BU because we just didn't see a point in running sick, and it was like we weren't ready for it mentally. And then now I'm just coming back. I'm back into full training now, which is nice, but it is a weird period of time. Like you never know where you're at. Like I don't know what fitness I'm in, so it's a weird time. But I'm excited to go back and just start racing and get back into like the swing of things. Because right now I feel very like I just have no idea what's going on.
To that point of like quote unquote having no idea what's going on, you've been coached by Ray for a couple of years now. You've experienced success underneath him, his training in the program. Can you speak out there to athletes who struggle with confidence, specifically, you know, in those periods? Because I hear that a lot. An athlete will be like early mid-season and they'll be like, oh, I don't know where my fitness is. What I always say is, well, if your coach has had success with you in the past, they probably know what you're doing, and just do exactly what they say to a T, because like it's almost their job to feel the pressure and nerves, not you.
I It's quite funny. I literally had a phone call with Ray like 3 days ago, and he was telling me exactly this because I think even though like I'm a senior and I've been under him for a long time and I should know, but I still get anxious and like I if things don't go my way I freak out a little bit just with the nature of the sport. But I think it's so important to just that's what Ray always reminds us is we just have to do the running and let him take the pressure and let him do all the thinking while we just have to do what he says. And I think it is so important, like what you said, is just do everything he says. Like I sometimes I just don't understand why people don't listen to their coaches or they deviate from the plan because I'm just like it's been set for a reason. So yeah, I think just listen to your coach.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about in regards to your training specifically as it relates to this current time period where you are at home in New Zealand and kind of this like off time, even though not really, as you just mentioned, you're in the full swing of training. How do you stay focused and make sure you're getting all your work done when you are thousands and thousands of miles away from training partners and like trainers and the whole list of resources that you're used to in the NCAA? How do you still make sure that you're getting the work you need to get done when there's probably more distractions and less support than you normally would be used to?
Yeah, it's hard. Like because you have to have all your self-motivation like to get up and go. But I think for me, luckily it is summer, so I think that makes it a lot easier, that going out isn't the worst thing because it's actually quite sun, and I just turn it into like, at least I can go get a tan or something. But it also, like, going for a double, it will be, it's doesn't the sun doesn't set till 9 p.m, so I am very lucky for motivation in that sense, because I think I'd struggle if it was the sun was setting at 6 or like 4 p.m and I had to go out and double. So I am really lucky with that. But I think motivation just comes from, I don't want to go back to school and be unfit. Like, I have to do the training.
One of the interesting things that I've came away with from the guests I've spoken to over the years is the difference between motivation and discipline, and how the best of the best have discipline. And I think, like everyone else, relies on motivation. Because yeah, I'm very confident, whether you agree or not, which I think you would agree. Like if it was snowing, you would still get your work in. It's just more, doable because it's sunny. It makes it more
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable. But you're the type of person that you have the goals and you have the drive and the work ethic that regardless of the circumstances, you're going to get the work in. And I think a lot of times that's what separates runners, specifically at an early age, where they'll only do things when they feel like it, when the conditions are right. But people who are running 427 miles like yourself and the best of the best in the NCAA, like they have that inner drive and work ethic and dedication. Because again, motivation is a feeling, dedication, I think, is a trait. So I guess a question off of that: how do you feel like you've gained dedication over the years? And do you think that's innate to you, or do you feel like that's been built up throughout the years?
I think it's built up through the years. I don't think I could say in high school, like, I'm not going to pretend that I've always been, like, I was actually quite, like, in high school, I would always, me and my mum, we actually had this conversation, like, we figured it out, like, 2 years ago. Like, I used to hide on my runs. Like, we have, like, a back thing, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going for my run, but I would just go around there to get Wi-Fi, so I'd set my phone. But that was just because I hadn't, like, I don't know, I was just in high school, like, I just thought I'd more, but then when I came to Providence and I realized, like, how much I loved running and, like, just everything about it, and, like, the NCAA system, it really inspired me. I became, like, obsessed with the sport, and I think that is important. And now I always laugh because I'm like, I cannot, like, I'm very, like, if something is set, I will do it, like, unless something comes up. But yeah, like, I hate if something had to happen and I had to deviate from the plan, I would be very angry. So it is funny because me and my mum, we laugh because now I'm very everyday, when, like, before I left for America, I was a bit more, didn't really mind.
Yeah, go with the flow. It's January 2025. This is the time of the year that I think everyone has big goals and aspirations. And, the people who listen to this podcast are dedicated runners who want to get better. What would you say to a runner listening today who is approaching this year with kind of they look at the year you had last year, and we can get into some of the accomplishments that you achieved, and they see some of the breakthroughs you experienced? What would be words of advice in terms of, to a runner out there, how can they make 2025 the year where they look back on December 31st and say, oh my gosh, like I transformed as a runner? What are the keys to doing that?
I think just changing your, maybe just, like, changing your mind shift to that you can do things. I think running is so mental, and it's all, like, confidence. I feel like I started to have a little bit of a switch once I believed in myself, not just I wanted to. I always wanted to run certain times and all these things, but I never believed I could. And then I think just once you actually fully believe in yourself, a lot will change. And I also think you have to do the work and you have to take sacrifices, and it's hard, but it will work out in the end.
Obviously, we could get into your training and talk about the crazy work that's required to run the times you do, and place the places you do at the highest national meets. But that belief piece, as you mentioned, is like so crucial to a lot of people's success. And I think a lot of people, specifically in high school, which we do have quite a few high schoolers who listen to this podcast, like struggle with confidence at that age. You're going through adolescence, like you're insecure, you're working through everything. What would be words of advice to someone to start building up that confidence for the first time, whether it's, running, life, school, whatever it might be?
I think just every, like, to not take things so seriously, like a workout or even a race, like, don't hold on to them. Like, I feel like I always just go by to not take the lows too low and the highs too high, because I think you can sometimes get a bit carried away with the highs as well. to like, that is just one race, and everyone forgets your last race, so you have to keep going. So I think just to not get caught up in a bad workout or anything, because you'll just lose all confidence. So I think just keep going, honestly, and just it will get better. But I think to just not get wrapped up around a bad workout or a really good workout as well.
Yeah, take me through your progression of that. Did you struggle back in the day with, because for me, there were times back in, even in middle school when I was starting to get serious in the sport, where I would have a bad workout in the morning. It was so dumb. I had no clue what I was doing in training. I had a bad workout in the morning, and then I felt like I had to go like run another workout in the afternoon because I was just so insecure and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like trying to prove fitness rather than just like, okay, bad workout, remember for 12 hours and then move on rather than trying to run hard again in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like it's hard, especially maybe if you're on a team, because then it's like comparing is really hard, I think, for people. Like, obviously, if you're watching people kill a workout, but I think you just have to stay in your own lane and just, it is never that deep. And sometimes I have found, like, after bad workouts or after just things that don't go your way, I always find the race is always a bit better. Or I always find the week you feel bad, the race is normally actually better. When if you feel perfect going into a race, I feel like it never really goes perfect.
So when you feel good on that like Wednesday workout leading into like a weekend race or whatever day you work out, are you nervous?
No, no, because then I'm like, oh, I feel good at least. But I've had
Yeah.
lots of times I'm like, oh, this is going to go great, and it doesn't.
Do you feel like, I think one positive thing that can come from that, and this just comes with age and maturity in the sport and like doing it for many, many years. If you race well off of a bad workout, but you also race well off of a good workout or a good night of sleep, a poor night of sleep, but like you experience the contrast and the same end result, kind of gives you the confidence that like, oh well, this doesn't matter as much as I think it does. Like, it matters, but it
Yeah,
doesn't really.
no, I couldn't agree more. Or like sleeping is quite hard. Like I struggle with it. It's just nerves, and I dealt with it quite a lot this season in cross. Before Nutty come, I did not sleep, and it was I
At
couldn't sleep.
all?
Maybe for a few hours, and
Dang.
I think
And you
like,
placed fifth, right?
yeah. So
Jeez.
going into it, like it was 2 nights before I slept for a few hours. Like I did. Sorry, I should say I slept. I slept from like 11 till 3, but then I was awake and I just could not sleep. And then when you just overthink everything, and I was like, I'm gonna
Yes.
have the worst race ever. I was like, I went to my coaches. I was like, and they're just like, it's fine. Like you've slept all week. Like you're fine, and it always works out fine. But I do agree with you, because once I finished that race, I was like, oh, it's fine.
I think something that a lot of younger athletes, and maybe you experienced this as you were growing up in the sport, and if you did, if you can speak to that, that would be great. Coming up in the sport, they think, okay, I'm experiencing pre-race nerves, and that's exclusive to me and the people I look up to, like a Kimberly May or like fill in the blank Olympic medalist. They don't experience pre-race nerves because they've made it to X, Y, and Z level. But something that's been cool through this podcast is whether it's a Gabby Thomas who won 3 golds at the Summer Olympics or someone like yourself, it sounds like everyone experiences pre-race nerves. Like you never lose it. You just learn to get better at handling them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's so important to like talk about it, because yeah, I think for a while I thought I always thought like, oh, nobody else experiences, like I was like, I like am ruining my running experience, because I'm like, I just get so nervous. But I've gotten a lot better. But yeah, I've learned like everyone gets it and everyone just deals with it differently. And I think it is important to know, like, once you learn how to deal with it, it just makes everything better. But everyone deals with it.
Totally. Let's go back in time to young Kimberly growing up in New Zealand. Take me through your start in the sport of running and what your first impressions of the sport were.
Yeah, so I just did like our local cross countries, like school cross countries, and then I feel like I was like okay at them, and then my parents just put me into our club, but I was never very like good at all. Like I trained, but I wasn't that good. And then just before COVID, I went to a coach who was a bit more specialized. Like he was actually like quite a good running coach, and then I just started running with um, a group of girls, and I mean they're all in America now, which is quite fun. Um, and yeah, I just ran. I wasn't very. I was like decent, but like I never won. Like I was never New Zealand champion or any. I never won anything, but I was just always there. And then during COVID is when I got in contact with Ray, and then it's just we just went from there. But I was nothing good in high school.
I don't know. I think the facts would debate that a little bit based on the fact that you were able to come to the US to run in college, but I know what you mean. And we'll get into some of your results in a second. One question I did want to ask though, like, was there a point within your training or racing or a conversation with a coach where you did realize that, like, in your words, maybe weren't like the best or New Zealand champ, but obviously good enough to run at the next level? At what point did you realize that, oh, this running thing, oh, maybe there's a future here. Maybe there's a reality where I can take this, to another country.
Yeah, I think just the way New Zealand is, I think it's always been instilled in us, like from a really young age, to like go to America if you want to be it, like run. So I think ever since I was like 10, like, or maybe not 10, but ever since I was quite young, I always just was like, I want to go to America to run, like run the NCAA system. So I just feel like it was always instilled in me. I was like, I need to go to America and go to school and run there because it's just, New Zealand is really good, but I think we don't have an NCAA. Like, it's nothing like this.
Speaking on some of your results, you earned, and I'm not sure what year, but you earned second place at the New Zealand Track Nationals in the 800, 1500. And I'm curious to talk about that in relation to, were you happy about that, or did it sting that you got second twice in two different events?
No, I was so happy.
Okay.
I was so happy. Um, I think, yeah, no, I was very happy. I think I was a little bit annoyed in the 800 because I think I just got on like bit on the line, but it was one of those ones that like my training buddy, like I knew was going to beat me. Like I kind of knew I was kind of running for second for both those events. But I do find it funny because it was at another nationals that I came second at. Hannah Gapes, like she beat me, but I find it quite fun now that we're still like now running together in NCAA.
Speaking on going to Providence and taking your running to the next level at that school, what made Providence stand out from other schools that you were looking into? And what would be some advice to an international student listening who wants to run at the next level in the NCAA and is maybe a little confused about the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think I got really lucky with how easy it was. Well, I guess it was COVID, so it wasn't the most ideal situation. So I never visited or anything. But I, the first call I had with Ray, I had with my parents just because I needed, like, I was not making these big decisions. Um, and as soon as we got off the phone call, they said, "You're going to Providence," and I was like, "Oh yes." I
Wow.
was like, "I want to go," but I was like, "We should like maybe." But I, I think we only had one real conversation, and then I think the next call, I think I verbally committed, or maybe like it was very quite easy. Like we didn't, it wasn't much discussion. I kind of knew, and I had friends already at like Tessa. There was a lot of New Zealanders there, so I had lots of people to ask questions about. But I think you just have to go with your gut. Is my biggest advice.
Had you been to the US or Providence before you first stepped onto campus as a freshman?
I no, well, I'd been to America, but not the East Coast at all. I'd only been to like Disneyland in LA and stuff in Hawaii, so it was very different. And I don't think I really knew what to expect at all.
Take me through that plane ride, that flight from New Zealand home, which you had known for probably 17, 18 years, to Providence to go to the US, not for the first time, maybe, but for the first time seriously, and to run at the NCAA level. As you said, like from the age of 10, you were very aware that, okay, this is what you do if you want to take your running to the next level. What was going through your mind on that plane ride?
Oh
Like
my,
knowing that your life was about to completely change.
yeah, it was really hard. I decided that would be such a great idea to bring my whole family to the airport. Like, I think I had like 20 people there, which I don't know why I did that because it was actually so much harder to say goodbye. So I was like I was just crying. I think I cried the whole plane ride. The poor lady next to me, luckily she was a mum, so she was very motherly to me, but I think I was just so excited, but I just didn't know what to expect because I'd never been. My parents weren't, they couldn't come because of COVID. So I think it was just a sense of like loneliness kind of because I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm now in this by myself. But as soon as I got to Providence, it actually was really hard because I came really early, so I was the only person on campus. So in my whole freshman dorm, I think there was like, it was just me. And I was like, what have I done? I literally was like, Mum, I'm coming home. I looked up flights to go home. But then, I mean, people obviously helped me and it was fine because once everyone came, I loved it. But I think just freshman year is always hard. Like when I first started running the NCAA, I didn't understand anything. Like I just was so happy to be there, which is nice. Me and Shannon always say we kind of miss the naivety of it because like we ran NCAA cross our freshman year. And I think, or Shannon was, I don't know what Shannon came, but I was like 208th, but I was so happy because I was like, I made it to Insta. Like I literally like put it all over my Instagram because I was like, we're at Insta Blaze. But yeah.
I was going to ask you a question. I'm losing my train of thought about coming onto campus. Oh, okay. So from a non-running perspective, how much do you feel like moving from New Zealand to the US, going to Providence, and like that whole experience you just detailed in terms of like that moving day, how much do you feel like it matured you as a person? Like not even about running, but just you as a person. Like I can't even imagine. Like I moved from, not sure how familiar you are with, you probably are. I'm talking to you like you haven't lived in the States for 4 years. I grew up in Ohio and I moved to Texas last year. I live back in Ohio now, but I lived in Austin for like about a year. And even that was like a massive cultural shock. I feel like matured me a ton. I can't imagine New Zealand to Rhode Island. How much do you feel like that matured you as a person?
Oh, I'm literally like a different person to I was freshman year. Like, I mean, thinking of freshman year, I actually just like can't. But yeah, I think also coming in as I was probably even a very young 18-year-old, like I would say I was more like 15. So I think that first year was just a lot of growth and maturing and changing. But I'm so grateful it happened and it was hard. And like I always like my friends or like my family always just like, I don't really know how like you did it. And I'm like, I won't like it was definitely hard, but I'm just so grateful it happened because I think it's just made me so much stronger and yeah, I'm happy that it happened.
It's amazing. So I've had on Shannon, Alex, and now yourself. You're kind of completing the Holy Trinity here with this podcast. And obviously on the team as well are a bunch of other, remarkable international athletes and recruits. The question, and I should get him on the podcast and ask him this question himself, but how is Ray so dang good at recruiting international kids?
I honestly I don't know. Like it's quite funny. We don't have like we're literally all international. Like it's kind of funny, but I think it's because he's Irish, so he's got the Irish pull. And then I think with New Zealand, he's had quite good history with it. Like he's had like a lot of New Zealand athletes have gone through him and have done well. So I think for the New Zealand side of it, you go like I knew all the top New Zealanders went there, so then I just kind of it's just like a follow on effect. I feel like.
What's your relationship been like with him from that first moment of stepping on campus when you're like, oh, I want to get a flight back home to present day where, you're going into one of your final seasons in the NCAA, I'm sure with massive goals on your mind?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm literally just thinking of me and Ray's first conversation, and I just walked up to his office, and I was so jet lagged. I think I was like crying, and but we've got a really good relationship, and it's quite nice to like. I think he just knows me so like it's taken obviously you get to know someone, but he knows me probably like better than I know myself. Like he knows exactly what I need, which is really nice. But that's something that just comes with over time. So going into my last semester, it's nice because I feel like we have a good bond, a good relationship, and we know each other now, so we know how to work with each other.
What would you say makes him such a good coach, even outside of like the times, the places, outside of the outcomes? What do you feel like makes Ray such a good coach?
I think he genuinely cares about us so much. Like I can see it for the whole team, but like I personally have just know like I know he cares about me as a person instead of just running, and he's very individualized with everything he does, like with our training, with us as people. Like he knows what works for us individually, which I think is really important that a coach doesn't just make it a group thing. Like we're all doing this one workout and you just have to stick to it. And if you survive, you survive. He's very individualized. And then the way he approaches people and like races, like pre-race chats and stuff is also very individualized. He knows what people like if they need a bit more of a confidence build up or if they don't. So I think he's really good at that. And I think that just comes with so many years of experience for him.
I definitely think I asked both Alex and Shannon this question, but for you, Kimberly, take me through what it's like working out with those two girls, and do things ever get competitive? What's kind of the energy with you three? You know, three of the best runners in the NCAA all happen to be on the same team. What's that energy and dynamic like?
It's actually so fun. Like we do like everything together basically. Well, I feel like especially this cross country season we did everything together. There like last year when it was just me and Shannon, there would be like a few separate things just with like just different strength, like we liked different things. But this cross country season we did everything together and it's honestly really fun. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's competitive, but I mean we push each other to like do good, but it's not like we're like trying to like outkick each other at the end of every rep.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, no, it's actually I love it. Like I think it's so cool that we have each other because it's like it's not. Sometimes I think it's quite like oh, it just feels like life because they're like my two really good friends. But when I sometimes think about it, I was like, it's not like that normal. But we're just so lucky to have it, and we're lucky that it's a good environment. And I think Ray also helps that with he's not chirping it like he's not making it a competitive environment. Like he's making it very chill and
How much is he going to miss you three when you all move on from the program?
I know. I think we might miss him more, honestly. We literally, no, I think he will, but I think it's exciting because they've got such a good young class. But no, I think especially me and Shannon, we're feeling very old and sad. Like at cross country that week, we realized that it was our last cross country trip, and I think we cried the whole time. Like the night before the race, we were all at dinner and we were all crying because we realized this is our last trip. So we definitely, it's going to be sad.
I guess flipping the script from talking about present day to going back in the past as we did a minute ago. Yeah, take me through that final week. You mentioned the tears and the emotions of that final, realizing, oh, this is our, final cross country race with each other. And also just when you become a pro, cross country becomes so few and far between. How much do you think that fueled that third place finish where the majority of you guys knew it was your last one and knew that this was your last time to give it all for Providence and give it all for your teammates and coach?
I didn't think it at the time that it was gonna do anything, but I think that is 100. Like I think that was such a big factor in it. And afterwards, one of our assistant coaches said like he knew something special was gonna happen after us all crying, and we went out to dinner at Cheesecake, and we all just were crying of happy to like we're just like all happy that we were here together, and like I think that was when like the coaches were like, oh, I think maybe something could happen tomorrow because they're very they're very like into it. Um, but yeah, I always think when you're running for something bigger than yourself, you will do things that you didn't think you can. And I think on the day, like everyone ran a bit better than they expected. And then we had our freshman just literally run the race of her life, our fifth scorer. So like, I don't think she even understands what she did yet, but I mean, we try and tell her like, but it's quite cool to see.
Earlier on in this conversation, when we were talking about your backstory in sport and growing up in New Zealand, you were very adamant that you weren't all that good and you never won a national title. Take me through the progression and your progression within the program with Ray within the NCAA to get to the point where you are now, where you're pretty undisputed, one of the best runners in the country, specifically on the track, in your specific distances and specialties. What's that progression been like, and what have been some of the biggest points in your mind that have, directly correlated to that success and progression throughout the years?
Yeah, I think I always say Shannon has helped me so much. Like my freshman year was just a normal freshman year. I feel like I always think of my first ever nutty come was the first ever time I scored on the team. Like I was the fifth scorer and I couldn't, like, I it was like the best day of my life. Like I couldn't believe that I scored on the team. Which I then find funny, like to my last time running at Wisconsin, I would have never thought like it would like change to that. But I think for me, like freshman year, I had a decent freshman year. I made regionals for the track, which was like my main goal. But I think I watched Shannon then progress to like she came seventh at NCAA's that year, and I just was like, oh my gosh, like that's my training buddy. Like she just went like she's one of the best in the country, and I think I saw that, and I was like very inspired by her, and I was like, maybe I can try. Like I've got all her the same resources as her, so I always say Shannon really inspired me, and then we just started working together and it started to help.
Obviously, you guys are same team. We're on the team at similar points. Both signed NIL deals with New Balance. Potential link up after college. What are the conversations there? As much as you could say or comfortable
Yeah,
talking about.
I mean, I don't really know much. Like, if it happened, I would love that. I think we've got such a good thing going. So I always am like, if it's working, like, there's no point. But I would love to stay a little duo, well, trio even. I would love to stay with my girls.
Speaking on the future and something you can probably talk more about, which is the upcoming indoor and outdoor season, as much as you're comfortable speaking on what are the ambitions for it, what are the feelings, what are the emotions, and how excited are you to, it seems like you're just getting better with every season. So what's your mindset around the upcoming 2 seasons and 2025 as a whole?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've realized I only have like 6 months left in the NCAA. So it's kind of crazy that I'm like, oh my gosh. But I love indoor and outdoor. And I think it is scary. Like, I feel like I have big goals and I want to achieve these, but I also think having like pressure, or I always say like pressure is a privilege. So I'm really grateful to like feel these type of nerves and like all this stuff, but I am, it obviously nerves come with it, but I'm very excited and I just want to get started. I think, as I was saying before, I just, this period of time, I'm just like, oh, I just like want to go. I want to start racing. Um, but yeah, it's crazy because I'm like, I only have 2 seasons left. So I'm like, I want to have as much fun as I can.
Kimberly, final serious question for you. For those who have listened to our conversation and look up to you and your success in sport, what would be the final takeaway message that you want to leave the audience with?
I think to just not take everything so seriously, especially now that I'm leaving, as I've said, like, I feel like I've just realized you waste so much time and energy just stressing about things you literally cannot control. And I've had it so many times where I've just got so in my head and it just ruined everything. Like, NCAA cross the year before last in Virginia, I just put so much pressure on myself for no reason. And I just like, it just got to me so bad. And I dwelled on it for so, like, I was just like, what happened? And I think it just, now I know, like, I just let nerves get to me and I just think, just let it go. And literally my pre-race chat before NCAA cross this year was, Ray was like, you have a 3K in 2 weeks. You just need to get through this race. And then we, like, that's what matters. I mean, I didn't end up running it, but it was funny because I was like, oh, we're not even talking about cross country. Like, it was just like, this race, honestly, at the end of the day, no one's going to remember it in two, like, everybody moves on. You're the only person that holds on to these races. So I think just nothing's that deep.
I love it. My final question for you, Kimberly, the question I ask every guest on every single podcast. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
Oh
Talk about
gosh,
nerves and pressure.
I
Pressure is a
know.
privilege.
Pressure is a privilege. I'm not a cook. We're really lucky. We have the dining hall, but I think I will say, because it is kind of like just the running, like, it's a joke on our team that I like love like potato chips. So I'm gonna say nachos because then it incorporates potato chips in there, but not nachos. It's like, it's not New Zealand nachos, but like, it's not just like cheese on the chips. It's like meat. It's
Okay.
good.
We'll have to get Gordon on board to see the New Zealand Kimberly May nacho special. Kimberly, thank you so much for this conversation. I've been wanting to have this one for a while because I know your story is super inspiring and your progression in sport has been amazing to see. And I can't wait to see all the things you accomplish in 2025. So keep up the great work. Appreciate you waking up so early to share so much wisdom. And yeah, appreciate all that you're doing and excited to follow along the journey some more this year.
Thank you so much.